Okay, so today we are going to talk about plantain. Not this plantain, but this plantain. I wanted to get this video out before summer is over, so that those of you in the Northeast can find some plantain before the winter snows come in and cover up this valuable herb. So let's take a look at a video I shot recently discussing plantain, the miracle herb under your feet.
Good. Hey, this is Sean from One With Nature, and today I'm in Ohio. And how do we know I'm in Ohio? Because it's cloudy and it's raining, and it wasn't 10 minutes ago. But usually I'm running around where there's coconut trees and beaches and lots of sun. And it is cool to see how these different systems of herbalism use the herbs that I've read about in books for years. It's cool to actually be able to see and talk to the people that have used this stuff all their life. But it's also good to come back home every once in a while, because me talking about a root that grows in Jamaica or China doesn't do you a whole lot of good when you need it now. So we're going to talk about plantain today. Plantain is one of the greatest medicines on the face of the earth. It's just not generally gushed over because it's so common. I'm in a park right now, not far from where I live, and there are literally thousands of plantain plants here. Plantago major and Plantago lanceolata. And if this leaf only grew on the side of a mountain in China, you would have to pay $100 a pound to get this leaf. But as it is, you don't have to. If you're watching this and you live in the northeastern United States, I guarantee you some of this is growing near you, maybe in a park. And what's the big deal with plantain? What does it do? Plantain is an extremely useful medicine for drawing infections and, let's say, splinters, maybe glass or wood, what have you. Maybe you trip and fall and you put your hands out and you end up getting splinters or gravel embedded in your hand. Plantain will go in and it'll bring that foreign object out, and it'll also bring out any infection that's going on. Plantain is cooling and moistening, so this is a perfect day to shoot this video. And it's also classified as drying. So how can something be cooling, moistening, and drying at the same time? Well, it's moistening in that it's a mucilage. It's got a slightly slippery, gooey consistency to it when the leaf is ground up. But it'll also soothe irritated areas. So if you have an infection, let's say on your arm, it'll soothe and moisten that area. But it's also drying in that the astringent properties of the plantain will draw that infection out of your body. An infection that usually is accompanied by pus and other fluids. So in that sense, it's drying. Plantain is a slightly moistening herb, and it's important to know what the moistening herbs are. Why? Because there are 300,000 species of plants, trees, bushes on the earth, more are being discovered all the time. But most of those are drying. We don't really have a lot of moistening herbs. So we've got, most herbs are cooling, drying, warming, drying. Not a lot of them are moistening. So it's all about balance, right? So when you've got this many drying herbs, and then you've got this many moistening herbs, you need to know what the moistening herbs are so that you can achieve balance. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're an herbal practitioner and you live in Seattle, Washington. And somebody comes to you, they say, they list all of their issues, and you determine that you're dealing with an individual that has basically slight adrenal fatigue, but they don't have a lot of money. What you might suggest they take would be stinging nettle leaf. And so they take it for 3 or 4 weeks. They come back in a month and they say, hey, I feel better, I feel great. That's awesome. And here's some other things you can do as a follow-up. No problem. Let's say you're an herbal practitioner in Boulder, Colorado, and someone comes to you with the exact same set of issues, and you give them stinging nettle leaf. In a few weeks, their tissues are going to start drying out. Their skin is going to get dry, their eyes are going to be dry, their joints are going to be dry, their hair is going to be dry, because there's not enough humidity at that level in the air like there is in Seattle, Washington. So you have to mix that stinging nettle leaf with a little bit of, let's say, marshmallow root or slippery elm, something to give it a moistening quality so that you don't ruin the balance that the person's trying to achieve. So what are some moistening herbs? There's licorice, dendrobium, opiopagon, Solomon seal root, American ginseng. In China, you'll often see American ginseng and dendrobium paired together, because in China, first of all, when I was in China, I traveled all through the eastern half of China. I never saw an herb shop and I never saw a pharmacy that did not have American ginseng. It's highly prized over there. It's a moistening, slightly warming herb. And American ginseng has an affinity for the lungs. And when it's paired with dendrobium, you start getting those fluids being held by the body, and it turns a dry, inflamed condition into a more soothed, moist condition. And when I was in China, the entire eastern half of China was sick. I was in a town where you could not take a step on the sidewalk without stepping in puddles of mucus. People everywhere were sick. The flight attendant on the plane was sick. The person that served your food was sick. The people in the shops were sick. People on the street were sick. Everyone was sick, and they had this dry, hacking cough. I remember at the Beijing airport, I felt so sorry for this guy. This guy had a dry, hacking cough. He was bent backwards at a 45-degree angle and just coughing at the corner of the ceiling. And I thought something was going to fly out, like a lung or something. The guy was in misery. He had a dry, hacking cough. Okay, so that's why American ginseng, one of the reasons why American ginseng is paired with dendrobium and sold in China. We've also got sassafras, slippery elm bark, Siberian elm bark, which I don't think you can find a commercial source for. You'd have to go out and get that on your own. Comfrey root, shatavari, of course marshmallow is the king of all that. Burdock root, which is good for adjusting the oils, the balance of the oils in the body. So these are important moistening herbs that you should get to know, and they all have their individual qualities, and they all have specifics for why they would be used in the body and at any given time, depending on the person's constitution. So how would we use this? How would we use this plantain leaf here? I've pointed this out I don't know how many times I've pointed this out to people, but I show them the plantain leaf and I explain this is really good for tooth issues. If you have an infected tooth, you pick the leaf, chew it up, and jam it up against the gum where the infected tooth is, and it'll pull that infection right out of your jawline. A lot of times, if you thought a tooth couldn't be saved, it can save that tooth. And let's be clear, I'm not recommending this ahead of medical treatment. If you have a choice, go see the physician of your choice first, and then if you want to use the plant, find out what's going on inside you first, and then decide what you want to use, because this is your health we're talking about. But if you're fluent on the use of the plantain and other herbs, then there's no harm. So its astringent properties pull infections out of any area of the body. And if you can use something to heal the skin on the outside herbally, you can use it on the inside as well. In other words, you can chew it up and swallow it. You can make a tea out of it, which is really good for the hacking dry cough that I talked about earlier. So Another thing that I wanted to talk about as far as plantain is something that I call the plantain personality. I don't know if anybody else has talked about this. I've never seen it, but I haven't gone looking for it either. But there's something called the plantain, that I call the plantain personality. What's that? Plantain, in all of my travels, many times I have seen plantain grow out of a crack in pavement. Pavement that gets so hot that in the summer you could fry an egg on this black pavement. You'll see a plantain the seed has managed to find its way into this crack. It got a hold of some moisture and it blooms right out of that black pavement, this green oasis. And that's part of what makes plantain one of the greatest medicines on earth. I'm in a park right now where people routinely park on the grass. People are running all over the place playing sports. Not today, but it thrives in hard, packed soil. I've seen plantain grow in parking lots of abandoned factories where cars have parked for years and the oil and the gases drip, and this plantain just effortlessly grows out of these harsh conditions. And this is also part of the qualities it uses to draw infections. Just like it reaches down and draws moisture and nutrients out of hard packed soil, harsh conditions, it can do the same thing to draw infections or foreign objects out of the body. So what does this have to do with the plantain personality? The plantain personality is a person that maybe life hasn't really smiled on them lately and they're living in harsh conditions. Maybe they don't have a lot of money. Maybe they have a problem with their health, right? They've got some issues with their health. But does that stop them? No, it does not stop them. Even though they're living under harsh conditions, they still find a way to not only survive, but to thrive. And they bloom under these harsh conditions, and they find a way to give back to other people. Maybe they can cook a meal for an elderly neighbor. Maybe they can donate their time at some type of shelter. Maybe they can sew some clothing for somebody that has arthritis and they can't use their hands, which they could use some Solomon seal root, maybe. And so this is the plantain personality. Just like the plantain that grows in harsh environment, but gives back to us. The plantain personality in a person thrives under harsh conditions. They don't give up. They find a way to bloom, and they find a way to be of use to their fellow man. And maybe if you're watching this, you are a plantain personality. You just never had an analogy comparing you to the plantain, one of the greatest medicines on earth. You never saw that analogy before, but maybe you know somebody that fits what I just said. So we should recognize the strength of the plantain personality. If you're watching this and you are a plantain personality, I want you to know that I appreciate who you are and what you're doing, because it's not easy. We've all been in situations in life where we thought, I can't deal with this anymore. But just like the plantain that thrives in the middle of an abandoned parking lot and blooms, and on a hot summer day you reach down and you touch it and it's cool, it's cooling. That's what you are to the people around you. Maybe you offer some type of, I guess I want to say, a cooling temperament or a soothing personality to people that otherwise wouldn't have access to that type of person.
Okay, I got so wrapped up in talking about the plantain personality that I totally forgot to talk about some of the other areas of interest when it comes to plantain. All systems of herbalism around the world, whether they be Unani Tib, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, herbalism practiced in the various island chains around the world, South American herbalism, Russian, European, Western herbalism, they all have herbs that they rely on to clear heat out of tissues, to cool these inflamed tissues, to astringe, tighten, and tone the tissues, and to draw infections out of the body, to facilitate the speedy recovery of wounds. Plantain does all of these, and it's all self-contained in this one commonly available plant. Plantain contains allantoin, sometimes pronounced allantoin. What's that? Well, it's a cellular proliferator. It accelerates the healing of wounded or damaged tissues. Allantoin is found in famous herbs like comfrey root and comfrey leaf. It's found in Solomon seal root and other herbs. But you will also find allantoin listed as an ingredient in hundreds, possibly thousands, of skincare products sold around the world. Remember, whatever you can herbally use on the outside to soothe skin or heal tissues, you can use on the inside. So making a tea out of plantain and drinking it will also be beneficial for the stomach and intestinal lining. I had a lady in one of the northeastern states contact me about her husband's foot that had an infection in it. It was swollen, full of pus, lymphatic fluid, painful, all kinds of weird colors. She went out onto her front lawn, picked a bunch of plantain leaves, ground them up, and applied these ground up plantain leaves directly to the open wound on her husband's foot. In one day, the plantain leaves had expelled the pus and the trapped lymphatic fluid. The color returned to normal. The size of the foot returned to normal, and the husband could once again wear shoes and walk normally in a short amount of time. I have seen and heard firsthand numerous accounts of plantain leaves being chewed up and applied to bee stings, bites from ants, wasps, centipedes, spiders, etc. You just reach down, grab a handful, chew it up, and slap it right on the wound. Sounds crazy, but it works fantastic. Plantain is also known as snakeweed due to the stalk that rises up and out of the rosette of leaves. You'll see that here. But also because the leaves are used to draw venom from snake bites right out of the body, right through the entry wound where the snake has bitten. I suggest collecting plantain yourself. Take a good look at the pics and video here. This is plantain, but sometimes it's confused with digitalis lanata. Digitalis lanata is a plant that sorta, looks like narrow or broadleaf plantain, so make sure you're getting the plantain pictured here. Or you can find it in dried form online from larger herb supply houses. For fresh leaves, pick 1 ounce of leaves, tear them into little pieces, pour 16 ounces of boiling water over them, allow to cool, and drink a few cups throughout the day. For an alcohol extract of the fresh leaves, try 3 to 5 drops at first, then increase to 30 drops at a time if need be. Plantain is great for toning the kidneys, whereas some herbs may have too strong of an action on weakened kidneys. Plantain will exert a gentle toning action. The addition of a good nettle seed alcohol extract, about 30 to 60 milliliters a day, will further strengthen the kidneys. I mentioned using plantain for soothing the intestines. Plantain's drawing action works on the inside of the body as well. It will pull old, static junk out of the folds of the intestines. It can be combined with yucca root, which has a cleansing action all of its own, and yucca works in a completely different manner than plantain. I'll be making a video about yucca root shortly, but both will cleanse the intestines and provide fiber that will feed the beneficial bacteria in the GI tract and also regulate the bowels. When you have a person who cannot stop coughing and they tell you, "It feels like something is stuck in my throat, but no matter how hard I cough, I cannot bring it up," then think of plantain. Remember my account of the man in China who was almost literally coughing his lungs out. Plantain would have been a remarkable help for his dry, inflamed, hacking, and unproductive cough. By the way, this includes people who maybe they have breathed in particles from some type of combustion, maybe an exhaust of some type, maybe particles from a construction site, maybe just one breath they have taken and then they coughed, but later on this cough just haunts them for days, weeks, or longer from this very brief exposure to some type of combustion or tiny particles. Plantain tea should be thought of here. Its drawing action can pull out these tiny particles from smoke or exhaust. Take a good look at the videos and pics provided here. Plantain is found everywhere. Even in the South Pacific you can find it, all across the US, all across Europe, even on the Great Wall of China, and probably on the moon. I don't know about the moon, not yet. Someday. You never know. But if it's terrestrial and not the North or South poles, you have a good chance of getting it not far from where you live. So just some basics of plantain. You can go online and learn about its other principal constituents like aucumin, how it does what it does, and dozens of ways to use it. This is Sean from One with Nature. Thank you for watching.